Hi everyone, this is Erica from Gokche Capital. Today is episode 11 of our Gokche Investor Series, and this is the first in a new mini-series on business strategy. Just as a quick recap from last episode, we wrapped up our mini-series on our end-to-end acquisition process and talked about notary closings, including the closing process itself, the pre-closing checklist, and potential issues that come up. Now, before I start this new mini-series, I do like to share stories, so I will first give you another story. And this is about closings. In the vast majority of counties where we work, we are actually allowed to record electronically using a service called Simplifile. So basically, you submit the deed through Simplifile, it gets sent to the county, and then the county sends back a PDF of the recorded deed, which Simplifile then mails to you. It's a great service, and it dramatically reduces the time it takes to record a document, but you never actually get a hard copy of the recorded deed. You just get the PDF. So it doesn't happen very often, but we did recently have one seller who called back angry because they did not receive a hard copy of the deed in the mail. So when I spoke with the seller, I tried to explain that we don't usually send hard copies because it would be the same as the seller just printing out the PDF that I had sent. But in the end, of course, it's important that customers are happy. The customer is always right, so, of course, and I think it's important to keep that in mind. So, of course, we did send him a printout of the PDF in the mail. But the moral of the story here is it's important to clearly explain to sellers if you are using, or when we are using a service like Simplifile, that the deed will be recorded electronically and that what they will be getting is a PDF. Okay, so again, this is our first in a new mini-series on business strategy. And I'd like to start out this series by saying we certainly believe that land investing is a business. It's definitely not a passive investment strategy. And so it should be treated like a business, as if one is setting up any other kind of business where you buy and sell items. So in this mini-series, we'll go over all of the steps that we took when we set up our business entity for land investing. And today I'll go over how we selected our business entity type, and then just a brief overview on the different options that are available. And of course, I should preface this, as I usually do in all of these presentations, by saying I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant. So this is a high-level overview based on our research, but it should not be taken as advice or a guideline for what you should do. Okay, so in selecting our entity type, for us it was very straightforward. We were not new to creating a business entity. I have a blog that is owned by an LLC, and my partner had in the past run his own consulting business, or had a consulting business, and that was also an LLC. So we were already very familiar with LLCs, and that was essentially what we selected based on familiarity, ease, and simplicity. But there are other options, and we did take a few minutes to really think about what all the options were. And these options include a trust, general partnership, limited partnership, corporation, and limited liability company. I'm only going to talk about trusts very quickly. They're not really a business entity. They're classically used to transfer assets between generations. I think many of you are familiar with them. One of the biggest benefits of a trust, according to our research, is when the beneficiary of the trust is different from the grantor or the person who's placing the asset in a trust. And when that is the case, there is a lot of asset protection built into the trust. That is, plaintiffs, creditors, anyone who is suing you as the grantor cannot get at assets of the trust. Of course, the downside here is if you wanted to do land investing through a trust, you would, to get that asset protection, again, based on my research, although their trusts can get very complicated, so I don't want to talk too much about them, and I'm certainly not an expert in them, but I don't believe you would want to be the beneficiary and the grantor if you wanted the asset protection that comes with a trust. Now, general partnerships, which partnerships as a whole are one other widely used business entity form. A general partnership is essentially a business or investment entity where two or more individuals share all assets, liabilities, and profits. And in a general partnership, each partner is liable for everything that all the other partners do. But each partner also has the ability to make decisions about the partnership. And taxes are passed through to each of the partners' tax returns. It's a very flexible structure, but it doesn't offer much in the way of liability protection. Again, based on our research, and also based on our research, one advantage that some folks may find is that it's pretty simple to set up a general partnership, and I believe the cost and paperwork can be less than for other business structures. Now, a limited partnership is still a partnership. The only difference is that some of the partners, it's a different partner class within the partnership. So a limited partner has limited liability. So they essentially are only liable for the amount that they have invested in the partnership. They're not liable for anything that the other partners do, but they also don't have any say in the operation of the business. So where there are limited partners, there will also generally be general partners who are taking on all liability and managing the business. Again, my understanding is once you start getting involved in having limited partners in the partnership, you must register the venture in the applicable state. So limited partnership has an advantage for any member who wants to be essentially a passive member or an investor in a partnership. Then there are corporations. I think everyone is familiar with what a corporation is, but it's an entity that is separate from its owners, and for legal purposes is viewed as an individual in that it can engage in most of the activities that an individual can. So it can enter into contracts, borrow money, own assets, pay taxes, all of that. And again, it's separate from its owners. So its owners are typically shareholders, and they have limited liability, but they can take part in the profits. And I think the key thing here, now taxes around corporations gets more complicated. I'm not, again, expert in that, but taxes are not passed through to the shareholders. The corporation pays taxes. Now then there are limited liability companies, and the limited liability company kind of manages to marry the corporation and the partnership. So in a limited liability company, each member has limited liability, but also has full control, or can have, depending on how the documents are drafted can have full management control over the company. And it's flexible from a tax perspective, so LLCs can be viewed as either partnerships or corporations, again, from a tax entity standpoint. And to form a limited liability company, you do need to file an article of incorporation with the state in which the LLC is incorporated. So, as I mentioned before, we chose an LLC. At a basic level, we were already familiar with it. It's a simple entity. It provides good asset protection, and it's actually very easy and relatively inexpensive to form in New York. But just briefly, compared to a partnership, it offers better asset protection, again, based on our research. And then compared to a corporation, you have more flexibility around how you want to be taxed. Also, from asset protection standpoint, plaintiffs and creditors cannot be awarded shares in the LLC, so they will never be able to have any kind of management interest in the company. Now, I have heard some folks talking about more complicated ways of creating legal entities for real estate purposes, and also holding real estate assets that are potentially better than an LLC. You know, I've heard some creative things around the use of trusts and multiple entity structures. But we chose not to go down that rabbit hole, at least at this time, and just because the land business is relatively simple. We're just starting out, and the potential cost and time of trying to get creative with a business entity just didn't seem to be worth it. And, you know, it's also worth noting that I think the LLC seems to be one of the more common structures that is used by land investors. And so just very briefly, incorporating an LLC. So we incorporated in New York, and in New York, you create your articles of organization. There's actually even a default form that the state has, which you can use. Then you simply file those articles online with the Department of State, and you pay a $200 filing fee. So that's in New York, and that's the process we went through. It's also worth noting that there are online filing services that can be used to help both file the LLC and also draft the articles and any other organizational documents that you would like to. And we'll go over some of those services when we talk about where we find legal advice and legal services. Okay, so what's coming in the next episode? Episode 12 will continue this mini series on business strategy, and we'll go over how we selected a registered agent for our LLC, and also where we go for legal advice. And then, of course, I also just want to take a few minutes to let you know who we are if you are not familiar with us. So we are Gokce Capital. Our website is gokcecapital.com. That's GOKCE. And if you go to our website, you'll see that we do love promotions. We are offering a couple of them right now, including our free land giveaway, free vacation giveaway, and free swag giveaway. And now we're also, for a limited time, also offering free 15-minute consultation calls. And you can schedule those by sending us an email at info@gokcecapital.com. Also, feel free to email us if you have any questions. You can also leave the question as a comment in any one of our Gokce Investor Series videos, and we will answer your question in the next video. So, thank you for listening, and more to come.